So we will start with a discussion about the future cooperation between Baltic countries on MIL education. Our speakers are Meelika, Hirmo. Hi Meelika, are you here?
Yes, I am here. Welcome everyone.
Meelika is from Estonia and she's a coordinator at SALTO Participation and Information Resource Center. Then there is Mindaugas Grigaitis from Lithuania. He's a lecturer of Vilnius University and also literature teacher in Kaunas Jesuit Gymnasium. Hi Mindaugas, are you here?
Hi everyone, yes, I am here.
Nice to meet you. Then Nadine Gogu is from Moldova and she's an executive director of Independent Journalism Center. Hi Nadine. Nadine was here, but I'm not sure if she.
Hi, hello. Hi.
Hello.
Hi, everybody.
Yeah, Nadine is here as well. And Kristers Pleshakovs, who is head of Media Policy Division at Latvian Ministry of Culture. Hi, Kristers. Are you here as well?
Yes, hello.
Nice to meet you all. Thank you for joining us. I will ask you to reply to my questions no longer than a couple of minutes, and also feel free to jump in to add or disagree with someone or something said by other panelists. So it will be actually this kind of talk where we can join in and share our ideas. Also, in addition, it's important to mention that it's not a passive lecture where all others only have to listen. All listeners, please feel free to post questions on Zoom chat or Facebook live chat or Kiko chat live feed to panelists throughout the discussion, and I will try to ask those from time to time. So let's start. Latvia and Lithuania are actually currently renewing their school curriculum. I think this is a great starting point for our discussion. Mindaugas, you are a Lithuanian language teacher working at university, school, and you are also involved in renewal of current school curriculum on the subject of Lithuanian language. Does MIL topics and skills find their place in the coming curriculum?
Yes, in the renewal process, we are trying to include MIL topics and skills. As information is a meaning, and language and literature is connected with creating and interpreting the meaning. So we seek to educate these analytical skills of understanding the information as a process. And so we add such topics to our curriculum as fake news, analysis of commercials, means of manipulation or propaganda. And until this process of the renewal, the curriculum, we did not have such topics, or at least they were not prioritized until now. So we are seeking to look at the challenges of nowadays and to reply to those challenges in this way. And MIL topics are also included in curricula of other subjects such as history, and we are trying to connect these subjects, literature program and history program. Still, we experience some big challenges as we don't have common opinion what is the main goal of our subjects. I speak about humanities, and we have discussion what is the relation between national culture and school curriculum. Should literature and language or history course defend national identity, or should it explain how the identity is created? So what is more important in the subject itself, or the skills, or can we give only we use the subject to give the skills? So we have a lot of discussions, and now MIL topics are included, but they are not the main our concern. And in my personal opinion, MIL topics and skills should be even more emphasized than we have now, because we live in the age of information, so understanding of information is prerequisite.
Thank you. Kristers, how is the situation in Latvia? Is there already a clear picture how MIL skills should be integrated in new Latvian school curriculum?
Yeah, firstly, it should be noted that we in the Ministry of Culture are responsible for coordinating and implementing media policy also in the field of media literacy, and the Ministry of Education and Science developed curricula and all the standards defining the skills that must be acquired in schools. Therefore, without being an expert in the education system, I can provide general information on the learning of media literacy in schools. So, getting to the point, learning of media literacy is an integrated process and is taught in a variety of subjects such as history, languages, social sciences, literature, and others. Thus, of course, there is no separate subject devoted to media literacy. And in our opinion, this is also logical given that media literacy actually permeates all aspects of our lives. Therefore, it is adequate that media literacy is woven throughout the learning process, through all the learning process. And our education standards define the skills that each age group should acquire at the end of the particular class, also in the context of MIL. So that's the basic information that I can share with you for now.
Nadine, the situation in Moldova is a bit different. You have done very hard work on national level in putting together all stakeholders to create curricula and then to lobby its integration into schools. Could you actually describe the process which took place in Moldova?
Yes, Anna, thank you for the question. Just very briefly, a few history. We started back in 2014, just after the war in Ukraine started, and we noticed that Russian propaganda was spreading widely across Moldova through media from Russian Federation. And we employed a classical approach. We started with research, looked into experiences of other states, and after that, we organized public debates with participation of main stakeholders, with teachers, directors of schools, representatives of Ministry of Education, representatives of regional districts of education. And based on these debates, we decided to go further with an elective course, not to integrate in different disciplines, in different courses, but to have a separate course, an elective one, and to be taught this class at all three levels: primary schools, secondary schools, and high schools. And afterwards, we worked with the experts and we developed media education curricula for these three levels. It was approved by the ministry. We organized and conducted dozens of training of trainers, POTs, and also we printed textbooks for these classes and promoted the course through different means. And now we have, I would say, pretty encouraging figures. We have about 80 teachers that are teaching this class in for about 3,000 students across Moldova, mostly in primary schools because they started earlier, but also we have teachers from secondary schools and high schools. And I think that we succeeded in this respect, mainly because from the very beginning, we made sure that we have committed partners, supporters. We worked closely with the Deutsche Welle Academy, which is our partner in this respect. And the Deutsche Welle Academy signed a memorandum of understanding with the Ministry of Education on promoting the MIL in schools. Also, we work right now with Internews in Moldova, and through UCAD also we have support from them. And also we managed, IGC, the Independent Journalist Center, managed to sign a memorandum of understanding with the Ministry of Education. And since we had such kind of cooperation at the high level, also we looked into, not at such high level, let's say on regional districts or worked specifically with schools and promoted through different means, as I said. And now, yeah, I believe that in next years, we are going to continue to work in this direction, and the number of schools and number of students and teachers that will be involved in this process will increase.
People are already saying bravo to Nadine.
Thank you.
Meelika, your everyday work is connected to activities on media and information literacy for youth. How do you see the role of non-governmental and civil society organizations in the whole MIL teaching development? We can't hear you. So, Meelika? I'm not sure if others can hear Meelika. I can't hear. Now I can hear you, yeah.
So somehow something was off with the headphones. Yeah, thank you for the question. So as the education is not just things that happen in the school, in the university, or even in the kindergarten, then I would like to emphasize the role of non-formal education. So the non-formal education doesn't take necessarily place in the classroom, and it doesn't involve somebody teaching what is the truth or how to act or how to behave. So non-formal education is promoting more of putting the learner in an environment or situation where they can learn by experience, and they can be part of the environment of what they learn. And it encourages the learner to reach their own conclusions and judgments rather than accept the wisdom of the educator. So that's a bit of a difference. And non-formal education in this sense is a really, really good way to develop skills, values, and attitudes. So it's especially relevant in the aspects where there is maybe ethically not really the good way to influence heavily, for instance, which candidate or party to support when you are addressing politics or propaganda. So definitely civic society and actors outside of the school have a huge role in promoting media and information literacy, and so do the youth workers. And in general, from my experience, the best way is when non-formal education actors and formal education actors and outside partners work together.
So why it is important for different stakeholders to work together to develop media education?
Well, first of all, we're often thinking that young people need to be educated, or that young people are the most vulnerable group when it comes to misinformation or hate speech or propaganda even. But when we see what's happening in overall picture, then we see that the educators struggle how to address these topics. And the media and information literacy field is so diverse and so I wouldn't want to say complex, but in a way it is. So it makes sense that you engage partners who have more specific knowledge and experience. You don't expect a teacher to know everything about video production or how TV stations work or how algorithms work. The teacher or educator or any MIL initiator should have an overview and should know where to access the knowledge. Because I mean, nowadays, the best skill is not to know everything, because it's honestly just not possible, but to know where to find. And in cooperation, it's the best communication. You can bring different experiences, different competencies, different target groups, and you can pick the partners in a way that they can also speak to the young people in a way that it's refreshing, it's engaging, and it's very, very relevant in communication to choose who tells the message sometimes, because it has to be authentic to the young people, or for instance to their teachers. So teachers might accept some persona more holistically or like more naturally. They will trust the person more, and at the same time a 13-year-old girl who has problems and maybe doesn't even go regularly to school might trust another spokesperson. So it's really, really important to pay attention to this and also consider that maybe not in Baltics, but I'm looking all over Europe. Generally, there is still groups of young people who are not in school or not in training or not at work. So how are we addressing these young people or these people in general who are outside of the education system? So education, formal education, absolutely important. And I fully support the curricula, but I would encourage schools to look with open, wide eyes and to see with whom they could cooperate, who could they invite to the class. Maybe they could take the class and go meet a journalist or an activist, someone who works in advertisement, or someone like the police in Estonia. We had a really wonderful working group just before to see like who else is doing practical things. And in youth work, the beauty is that you put the person or the youth worker in the middle of it and you don't tell what's the right way. They will come to the conclusion, and it's a better learning method than teaching by saying. Learning by doing and experiencing it just gives the young person or any person actually more authentic feel that they know and understand what's going on or what is important.
Thanks. Nadine, what do you think, why is Moldova's approach better than informal education or Latvia's and Lithuanian studies where there is somehow MIL topics are incorporated in the whole curricula?
Well, I have to say that in Moldova, we have media education not only in schools, but we, as an organization and some other colleagues from civil society, we have other projects that target adult population. For instance, at IGC, we have a platform, web platform. It is called mediacritica.md. And on this platform, we publish a lot of materials, and we are targeting teachers, students, but also parents and journalists and so on. And we have a lot of tools to provide to them. For instance, games, quizzes, case studies, monitoring reports, and so on that show how media can manipulate or how the fake information is spread and so on. So we have this tool, but not only this one. Recently, we launched 2 other media literacy tools. The first one is called TV Privesti. In translation would be you have to care or something like that, meaning that TV viewers, whenever they see on TV screens some content that is not appropriate for kids, or it's sexist, or it contains violent language and so on, they can report on our platform about these cases. We are checking this information, and afterwards we are filling in petitions and sending them to the Audiovisual Council, and they are applying sanctions to TV stations, because we have our legislation and TV stations have to comply with the provisions. If they are not complying, it's their responsibility to ensure that the content is appropriate on TV screens. And another MIL tool is called Media Radar. We launched it recently during the election campaign, and we monitored the content of online media in terms of quality, reliability, and we created an application, Media Radar. Media consumers can download this application, and they receive information about the reliability or credibility of web portals they are consuming, they are reading, based on our media monitoring reports. So we are trying through different means to target and to reach other people too, not only students. In universities, for instance, we have several media experts that are traveling through different universities, meeting students and teaching, talking about, we are organizing short-term workshops, talking about media literacy, about fake news, about manipulation, and so on.
Thank you, Nadine. These are all good examples. I will ask you all to keep in a couple of minutes, otherwise your answers in a couple of minutes, otherwise others can't really speak. Mindaugas and Kristers, why in your countries it was decided not to have a separate subject on MIL education as in Moldova, but incorporate it in others? Wouldn't it be more successful if you would have a different topic? Separate topic?
I think, well, I think it's because of the tradition. It's just a simple answer, because we do not have such subject. We didn't have it ever. And also, I think it would be much better if we had such separate subject as MIL, because then we could give better skills. But from the perspective of formal education, I would add that it is very important that all stakeholders should cooperate while creating MIL programs or in general educational system. Because an example, as I hear Kristers told, that the curriculum process is connected with the Ministry of Culture and Ministry of Education, and here we in Lithuania we only have not only Ministry of Education, but one department of Ministry of Education is responsible for the for this renewing process, and that's why we have such narrow attitude towards education and towards MIL topics. So I would say that it would be much better that more stakeholders took part in this curriculum creating, and then maybe we could make better vision and and give better vision of how the MIL subject should look at school, because now here in Lithuania it is not very clear how this subject should look. So it was very inspiring to hear Nadine how to make that subject and how to make that subject work.
Kristers?
Yeah, I think that it's the path is chosen because it's the media literacy is important in almost every aspect of our lives, and it's very important to use media literacy skills when we are learning any subject. You need to be critical in all the subjects. You need to improve your media literacy in high level to improve to learn any other subject. That said, the media literacy is woven throughout the education system, but there is activities that are carried out by the Ministry of Culture that are that promotes and educates in different informal ways that is outside of the education system. So we are like playing in all kinds of fields.
All other panelists who are not policymakers, what do you see missing from the power holder side for MIL education development? Jump in, anyone. Nadine.
Yes, my colleagues mentioned a little bit earlier about the importance of having a very good relationship with the stakeholders, because it's not only about Ministry of Education, at least in our case, since it is an elective course, and it's very important to have teachers to be involved in this process. That's why when we started in the beginning, we had a round of workshops in schools. We met the teachers and we talked to them. And afterwards, we organized other stages of this process. And now, yeah, we are still working with the teachers not for them, but with them. We are involving them in different activities, and whenever we have the opportunity to provide them, with participation in different trainings, not only in Moldova, but also abroad, they can benefit. And they also are very much involved in MIL activities that we organize. For instance, MIL Week. It just finished a few days ago, and there we have a lot of participants, a lot of interest, and it's very good to have such kind of involvement, because we can promote and we can go to other schools and show how their colleagues are doing and why it is important to have them involved. And in this way, we hope that we'll succeed even more in future.
Actually, the people are asking what type of MIL interventions and tools have been proven to be most successful. You have mentioned different ones, but Meelika, maybe you can tell which one is the best.
Oh, wow. Well, I shamelessly promoted the participation resource pool. I'm not sure if I can share it, but I will really quickly share my screen. I think it will work. And meanwhile, I'm also talking. So the participation resource pool is a relatively new platform where we connect tools and resources about media and information literacy, but also youth participation, like new ways of youth participation, traditional ways of youth participation. It talks about young people attending on elections. It's very all connected. And when you connect, click on the resource pool, you can pick topics. And we also have, let's say, studies and surveys, but also practical lesson plans and different types of topics you can, look for. We have webinars and so on. And we are not necessarily like going to meet all the young people in Europe and doing trainings to them. So we are collecting those best practices and resources, what have been done by different MIL actors all over Europe. And what they've told us is that the best way is experiencing the MIL activities. When young people create content, when they are put into sort of simulations, they learn much quicker and they learn much more efficiently. So that's the main comment that we've received. I think as a report, I can add some links to some surveys that tackle this topic, like which programs or which activities are more successful, or what's the trends with the young people and their media literacy. But I wouldn't like really summarize it right here. I'm just really talking on the practical aspect, that putting young people into the experience and then discussing and not forcing any opinions on them has been, from our experience, from the experts who've been involved and who've been doing those trainings, the most successful way of raising media literacy and information literacy knowledge. And I think it applies similarly to adults as well.
At least in Estonia, there is a lack of media educators, also MIL educators. I think most probably it's the same situation in other countries. Would COVID era be a good opportunity to have an online course which is conducted by a handful of teachers all over one nation? Kristers, have you thought about this in Latvia?
Actually, for the last 5 years, we have carried out seminars for teachers, for social workers, for librarians, thus improving their media literacy. As a result, these professionals can help others with media literacy issues in their everyday work. These types of seminars are successful, in our opinion, because given that the professionals then work with a wide range of people and help them in this complex area. And talking about the online events, I don't think that it's a problem. For example, next month in December, we are organizing in national level a conference that will be about about how to teach media literacy, and the main audience for this event will be teachers. So yeah, I don't think that I think that it is possible to organize also in this pandemic time these kind of events.
Mindaugas, what about the situation in Lithuania? Is MIL subjects planned to be taught over the internet now, or has it changed somehow in the recent months?
Well, I have been, we here in Lithuania, we have been talking about this media and information literacy for about 5 years, but still we don't have unifying strategy how to teach them. So we don't have such courses online now, or we don't have, at least I don't see that we in, I'm talking about the attitude of the state, that we here in Lithuania feel that the MIL subject are so necessary in Lithuania. So I feel the lack of this strategy how to teach MIL, and we don't have, as I mentioned before, we don't have this strategy how to use this COVID situation to improve in MIL area. So I speak from the perspective of teacher, of course, from the formal education teacher, and I think that state should give more attention to the MIL subject, and of course to even when we come back to the normal life after the COVID era. I hope that it will be soon, so that we should have such courses on MIL subject online, and we should create our strategy how to teach them in school. Still, I see the situation in Lithuania quite chaotic today, because we don't have strategy how to improve in MIL area, and even as I hear in Latvia, they have such strategy to put MIL segments to various subjects. And now here we in Lithuania still lacks its inner integration of the subject, that every subject would add his part to teaching MIL. So I hope that we will use the COVID era to teach MIL, but now I don't see that we have very clear signs for that.
The listeners have a question. In cases where MIL is not useful to a government, as it reduces the effectiveness of propaganda, how it is possible for people to promote it themselves?
I can go. Yeah, that's my area. So that's where the civic awareness and civic cooperation is the key, because as we've seen in the era of propaganda, spreading of disinformation and manipulation, we are really vulnerable, all of us, and it's really the key to have a strong civic society. Even if the government is not necessarily supporting, there is still a way to work around with volunteering. And here I would really encourage everyone who don't have the resources or knowledge themselves to handle it, to work together with people in the other countries, the NGOs all around Europe. If you just do a simple Google or see who is available in the participation resource pool, even, you find so many amazing actors. You don't need to reinvent everything. You don't need to necessarily reinvent an online course. There are already so many very good online courses that you could really easily integrate to your activities. So the idea is that you have to focus outside of the systems, and you have to, and you can support, for instance, NGOs who work with press freedom or who work with civic society topics. you can volunteer, you can be engaged in, at the moment it's so easy to engage internationally as long as you speak any of the languages, but you can definitely get around of the official propaganda if this is a threat in your country. So I'm even thinking like Baltic MIL Summit, it's great, just to provoke you, but in a way, our issues or our challenges are not very different from outside of Europe or outside of the world, because we are living in a digital era. And I would encourage everyone not to wait till the COVID time is over or when we are getting back to the normal, because we don't know when and how and if. And the COVID related misinformation, propaganda, conspiracy theories are already impacting like generations, not just young people. So we need to act now, and we need to look for more strong cooperation in order to act quicker, not to reinvent every single method ourselves. So that's it.
I will expand the discussion because it's about actually cooperation between the Baltic states. So Nadine, how would you personally develop cooperation between Baltic states on MIL education, on Moldova's experience?
If I may, just 1 minute about your previous question about going online. Yes, when we saw the situation of pandemic, COVID, we already applied for a project in order to develop, to design an online course on MIL education at all levels. And also I have to say that our manuals on media education were translated also in Braille language for people with visual impairments. So we still have some ideas in order to reach also some other people from different vulnerable groups, in order to make sure that they have also access to such kind of information. And regarding your last question, it was about Moldova's experience. How can it be applied in the Baltic states?
Yes.
Did I understand correctly? Well, I know that through the Deutsche Welle Academy, which is our partners, we've also cooperated in the past with some colleagues from Baltic states, and our teachers traveled to different countries in order to see how this works in other countries. I would say that since Baltic states decided to go with the integrated approach, it's also a good approach, in my opinion, my personal opinion. And we are also thinking about this here in Moldova. Maybe somehow we'll go, you know, as a mixed approach to have as an elective, and also maybe we'll go with our colleagues in order to integrate in other countries. But my understanding is that in Baltic states, since colleagues previously mentioned that the states should do more in this respect, unlike in Moldova, the state, well, the main job is done by civil society, but the state also contributes because they are paying salaries of those teachers who take these classes. So somehow the state is involved at one stage, but not in the whole process. I'm not sure about civil society in Baltic states, since it's European Union. This creation is different, a lot different from Moldova. We still have access to donors, and we still have these opportunities, you know, to attract some funding in order to do something. But I assume that it's not the case in EU states, and that's why the main approach should be, you know, working closely with the state institutions in order to have this stakeholder involved in the process, and maybe they will, after they will be involved more, things will change.
Christers, we have heard a lot that state is not doing enough. Do you agree with this?
I think that the state and the Ministry of Culture, we could do more in the field of media literacy, but the problem that we face is, of course, is budget. The budget for implementing our media policy is insufficient. So if we had a bigger amount of financial resources allocated to to implementation of media policy, then of course we would do more. These activities that we have for now are the maximum that we can within our budget. So yeah, it's the question of money.
Meelika, how would you personally develop cooperation between Baltic states on MIL education?
Well, events like this are really relevant, but often they are not being followed up. So there has to be clear understanding what someone is doing, and there should be online or offline, whatever is possible, gatherings where common challenges are being discussed, and where we are like more in a working group setting where people are working with some problems that they have defined together. So co-creation is something that can work. And I mean, I'm just thinking that it doesn't need any governmental input necessarily. It would be great to have the support because things cost, but it would be so easy just for us. I've been already contacted by some people, but if we all pick up the content, create a co-working space somewhere online and have few Zoom meetings, we could already get things doing. Because I feel that actually Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania as Baltic states, they refer to the Baltic states, but we are working in many streams very separately, and Estonians also tend to look more to Finland, tend to look more away, but there is so many good practices, so many points why we can work together. So what I would do is to get an initiative group together and just see in a follow-up and a smaller group meeting what could we do. So whoever is interested can contact me and I can invite us to a short Zoom session where we could see where cooperation is needed, where it's meaningful, and we can share our experience anytime. So that's why we exist. Just one example.
Mindaugas, how is language barrier? The fact that in Estonia we speak Estonian, in Latvia we speak Latvian, and in Lithuania Lithuanian, obstructing the cooperation between Baltic countries on MIL education. And maybe actually it's easier to establish a common MIL education over Baltics among Russian-speaking minorities. What do you think?
I think the language barrier can obstruct the communication, but still we live in a global world. We learn foreign languages as we have this international English language. So I think first of all we should encourage educators to learn other languages, and of course, and then the collaboration and communication would be more fluent. And of course, I think if we go back to the question about this collaboration between the states, Baltic states, I would say that maybe the collaboration between non-civic organizations could be more fluent, because the state organizations somehow are not very flexible, I would say, and they have their own tasks to do, and this MIL education could be more fluent if non-formal educational organizations would communicate more. So speaking of minorities, of course, maybe that's the one of the uniting aspects. It could be also a solution for the problem, but I think that first of all we should just learn foreign languages or use translators. But when we make such summits or such gatherings as we have today, as Meelika told, I totally agree that we should make some continuation and to do more workshop or similar events, just to give some feedback how we will succeed to use the experience we will gain today.
I will ask now listeners if they have questions, they really want to get an answer. That is the moment to do so, because we are almost running out of time. I will ask you guys, while the others are writing their questions, share practical tips to teachers and youth workers, what they could personally do to improve the MIL education situation in their country. Nadine, maybe you start.
Do you mean what teachers can do personally?
Yes.
Well, in our case, it would be very good that they take this course and teach them in their schools, because it's not in all schools introduced yet. So if teachers will be with us more and more, the success will be here for sure. But again, I have to say, in our case, it's like a success story. We already were approached by some private schools that asked us to go to them and teach their teachers media education course, how to teach it in schools. So from their side, there is an interest, and yes, it's just take the TOT. We will provide the textbooks, and the class will be taught, and to be more involved in all these activities, extracurricular activities that they have opportunities to attend.
Meelika, Mindaugas, Kristel, would you like to add something?
Yes, because I know how overworked often the teachers and the educators are. They are drowning in works, and everyone is hoping them to solve all societal problems. So my suggestion would be get allies. Don't work alone. Don't try to solve everything alone. So see who else, if our teachers from our schools or youth workers reach out, just send a few emails out and see who responds. Usually people have the same challenges. And the second one is don't try to be the medium for everything yourself. So again, reach for allies and partners who have the capacity, and some of them will be definitely interested in cooperating. So you don't need to do everything yourself. You don't need to know everything yourself. You just need to be open to cooperation.
Kristel?
Yeah, as with any skill, it must be constantly developed and adapted to new challenges. So my advice is not very practical. My advice is that the skills must be constantly developed. But what we see in practice is that our seminar or organized seminars, which are aimed for teachers to improve their media literacy skills, are quite popular, and the attendance is quite high. So what we see in here, that teachers actually are interested in developing their media literacy skills and giving this knowledge, and are interested to pass this knowledge to next generations. So that is the best practice, and we are happy that our teachers are already very invested in this.
And Mindaugas, you have the last words.
So, thank you for the honor to have the last words. Yes, I think I just have to agree with all colleagues that what was told here, and I think we as teachers should be creative, and we cannot count only on formal education or expect state help. I would say let's take the responsibility and start from our own initiatives to collaborate. I think that could make a difference, or at least start a difference.
Thank you all very much. It was an interesting talk. So to sum up, we all remember that we need to educate young people and in general people more on MIL subjects, and we need a more cooperation between formal and informal stakeholders, and also between Baltic states. And it should be encouraged by ministries and other entities.